Welcome back to Community Roundtable. Last segment we led off with Jay is we want to talk about the things that Obama's been doing right now in his administration. I know the biggest thing in people's mind is the economy.
Right.
I think we're in the hole of almost to $1 trillion in national debt, and every day we wake up, we watch the news about company laying off and laying down, and really looking to the government to help at this time.
Right.
So I know Obama, even before he became president, he was putting in a lot of hours, working really hard with his advisors and stuff to try to not overnight thing, but slowly but effectively turning this economy around for America.
Yeah.
I think had some couple other stimulus plans and stuff. Can you share with us?
Sure. Well, I think one way we can tell how seriously Obama takes the economy is he's now getting a daily economic briefing from Lawrence Summers, who is now part of his economic team. Now, Larry Summers was the Treasury Secretary under Bill Clinton, and he was actually the president of Harvard University. He was there on my last year, so I got to meet him briefly. But now, he's a very smart man, and he's giving Obama briefings every morning about the state of the economy. And what Obama's trying to push through now, I think, is an $825 billion stimulus package, which he's trying to build a lot of bipartisan support for, even though he has a majority in both houses of Congress. So he could probably get it pushed through, but what he's really trying to do is to bring everyone together and to live up to the bipartisan pledge that he made earlier. So, that's the big thing right now. And it's a stimulus that will, hopefully put money in our pockets and convince people to spend more. But I think the problem right now is everyone realized that we can't have this consumption-based society. Absolutely. We can't just keep spending beyond our means. And I personally think that our economy is going to have to contract a lot further before it starts to grow again, because people need to start saving. We have a national savings rate where people spend more than they earn, and now it's caught up with us. So even the banks are the same way. With the bailout funds that were given out, banks were expected to loan those monies out and get the economy going again. But what they've done is they've basically sat on the money, and they've bolstered their own reserves. And that's probably the smart thing to do for them, because there were more people who were asking for loans than there were people who were qualified for loans. So they're very, very scared now. But they're either sitting on their money, or as we've heard, they're redecorating. CEOs are redecorating their offices, spending millions of dollars.
Yes.
Very bad press, and it's very, very shameful what's been going on. And I just read about John Thain, the former CEO of Merrill. I believe it's Merrill. He sold his house to his wife for $100 because basically he's maybe expecting to get sued or something. So he's transferring his assets before they can be seized. So to see this kind of behavior from people who already have so much money.
And he was the one that spent about $1 million to
redecorating his office. And that's taxpayer dollars. It is, because even though they can say that it's from a different fund, but when you've got when you put $500 in your right pocket and you claim you're taking the money out of your left pocket, it's one and the same, right? So it's really inappropriate what's happening, and the bonuses that we're paying with taxpayer dollars, I think that's the wrong way to be using this money. There needs to be more oversight. And
also the wrong message to go out there to the people as well. Now, you mentioned about Obama wants to be a bipartisan thing with this stimulus package. I know the Republicans and Democrats always have a difference of ideology. How difficult is it for him to get bipartisan support for this?
I think it'll be actually easier for him to get bipartisan support than it will be for our own legislators in California to get something passed. Because, for the federal government, you just need a majority vote, while in California, you need a 2/3 vote. And that could be a completely different segment. We can talk for hours about that. But I think because he's coming in with so much momentum, and there are so many people who like Obama. His approval ratings right now are about 68, 70%, which is the highest ever for a starting president. So Republicans understand that people want change, and that people don't want to hear the bickering, that dramatic action needs to take place, and that we support this president. We elected him with a good margin because we believe that he can get the job done. So please don't stand in his way, until he proves us wrong. So I think he has that momentum, so he can win over quite a few Republicans.
Yeah. And tell us more about this stimulus package. What's it include and how it's mostly likely to affect the Asian American businesses?
Well, I couldn't tell you about the specifics of the stimulus package. I mean, it's still being reworked, and there are portions that some people want taken out. I know that it's going to bolster Medicare, and it's scheduled to be spent over a period of 16 months, which has a lot of people kind of worried because they think, well, if we have a stimulus, we should spend it all now. But I actually agree with that it's broken out over 16 months because $800 billion is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. Yeah.
And I don't think we should just be spending it all at once. We should see what works. So the plan is to dole it out piece by piece. And I would completely agree with him if he decided, hey, what we're doing now, it's not working. Well, we're not going to spend the rest of the money.
Right.
So that's one thing that people, on the Republican side, they're a little unhappy about that. But I actually think, for Republicans who want to be fiscal stewards, who claim to be conservative, they should be happy that we are spending that in a measured pace.
Right, and I think that's smart too because you spend, you see how the direction is going to go.
Right.
Maybe if it's working, you spend a little bit more. If not, and that's what all business do.
Right.
When you make an investment, you don't just take on leap of faith and throw all your money in there. You kind of see if it works or not, and you put it in more. If it doesn't work, you don't put it in more.
And that's the problem with the last big bank bailout. Right? I think we can all remember the conversations that were being had, the dire circumstance that was being explained, and people basically thought, well, if we don't give this $1 trillion to the banks, the economy is going to collapse.
Right.
So we basically signed a blank check.
Right.
And Henry Paulson pushed for it. I mean, come on, he's the ex-CEO of Goldman Sachs, and now he's supporting his fellow investment bankers. I mean, I think there's a lot of conflicts of interest here, and in the end, we wrote a blank check, and we're not getting the results that we were expecting. So I think it's important for us to take a more measured approach with this money because this is all borrowed money. It's not even going to be you and I paying for it. It's going to be our children and our grandchildren.
Yeah.
And we don't have the right to mortgage our children's futures because of the mistakes that we've made. So I do think it needs to be measured.
And what happened to, I remember they were talking about Bush actually froze the money until Obama gets on board. About somewhere around $124 million.
I think it was more than that. It was a couple $100 billion that was frozen, and Obama's asked for it to be released now that he's in.
Was that put into with the stimulus
No,
package?
that's separate. I believe that's separate. I think it is separate. Yeah. So the stimulus will be a combination of tax breaks and spending, infrastructure spending.
But you feel very confident that Obama has a good team in place.
I believe he has a good team.
This.
Yes, I believe he has a good team. His nominee for Treasury Secretary, Timothy Geithner, got a lot of flack for not paying his taxes.
Right.
And it's disappointing that someone of his stature would run into trouble with taxes when he'll basically be, presiding over our tax system, right? As a Treasury Secretary. He'll have heavy involvement in that.
Right.
But he's a smart person, and I know that Lawrence Summers, he's known to be a little bit abrasive, but a very smart person, the youngest tenured professor in Harvard's history. So I think Obama is surrounding himself with a lot of really intelligent people. And, they're not going to get us out of this overnight, but I think they will have a pretty good handle, as good a handle as anyone could have on it. And it's also refreshing to see someone who isn't a former investment banker at the helm of the Treasury Department.
Right.
I think Timothy